Okay, folks, we're back. A little bit of a longer break than I had planned, but we're back to pick up where we left off, hopefully. Okay, so we had just talked about, I was doing this video kind of as I was painting to showcase kind of how I make some of these cloth colors. And, you know, we've got these shades that we've made here. So we're going to go ahead and use that to paint this figure we have here of the horseman. Okay, so we're going to grab this, and you know, we have the shades here. I don't usually do do this beforehand. I just kind of wing it. So I am going to, because of the color of this is kind of a bluish shade of the horse. We don't want a bluish type of a color, so we're going to go with this middle one. All right, so we're going to mix up a batch of that, and that one is the one that we did using the SS Camo brown. So we're going to just go ahead and lay it on top of here. Okay, and then our core color, which is this is a Vallejo green gray. All right, so we're going to mix us a batch of that. We don't need to go really dark because we are going to lighten this quite a bit up. And again, just like we did the horse, we're going to paint everything that is on this figure. Zoom this a little bit and move over here. Okay. And yeah, we're going to paint everything on this figure in this color. Well, not everything on the figure, but his all of his cloth. We might want to go a little darker than that. Okay, we're going to paint everything here on this, and I do try to leave a little bit of a black border in between this one and the next color. Sometimes I'm more successful at doing that than other times, but not something big. I don't go back and paint that line in like some figure painters do. Not that I dislike that style. I just when I find out about it, I already kind of have my own style going. So I do know there's some people that put the black lining in after the fact, and makes it look kind of like a comic book. I don't mean that in a bad way. It just means it's differentiated between it. I do like the look of that. I thought about doing that, but I've been pretty successful in keeping my painting style very consistent over the last maybe 10 years. 10 years? What am I talking about? 20 years. Wow. Yeah, pretty much the same style. So I've kind of, I got that going for me. I want to keep that way. It's just, I don't want to go in and realize I don't like how my things turned out, and all of a sudden I got to paint them a different way to get them all to fit. Okay, so we're just going to paint him. He's wearing kind of a long tunic. We're going to paint all this in this color. Again, this is the part I find the most boring, where I'm painting something completely in one color. Adding the other shades and is really what I like. So, and this is another Old Glory figure. I want to say it was one of their Crusade sets. I want to say this was the Bedouin set from their Crusades range. And I did an earlier video where I showed you guys how I ended up replacing the lances, because they came with very small, flimsy lances. So I wanted to replace them. And these guys, this army in particular, has very little that's known about them. One of the things that is known about them is that they had red flags and that they had long lances. So I figured, well, this was the opportunity to put some really long lances in there. So there's a lot of the things that you know about this stuff is just very limited. So kind of try to do the best we can with what we know. So, okay, so right now we have painted in this shade, which looks kind of purplish, the tunic of this figure. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same shade, okay, but we're going to have a little bit less of the darkener. Not white. I'm going to come over here to the gray here. And so we've got this shade over here, and we're going to make it a little light. Lighten it up a little bit. And then we're going to hit some of the other folds. Okay. Yeah, that's probably a good distance here. Hey, good day to you. Good evening to you, Greg, and thanks for joining in. Yes, trying to get some painting done here. Greg says 2 sessions in one day. Yes, I have had a very productive day. I was supposed to do yard work, but it looked like it was going to rain, and we just wrote that off for today. So it was close to about the same temperature it was yesterday, today, and yesterday was 40 centigrade. I had to look that up because I'm really good with the metric system, but don't ask me about what temperatures mean. I've got to look it up and convert them. So 40 degrees centigrade, and the humidity was close to 90, so it was horrible. And today's close to that, so we'll just have to get up early and do that. But anyhow, I've been very productive on the painting thing. I got plenty to paint. This is the 5th horseman of the final 12. So just kind of going over the some of the techniques I use to make these other shades. So these, I will put these up on YouTube, but I'm going to put these videos unedited because that's just killing me. I just don't have the 4 or 5 hours to sit there and edit the videos. So you guys can fast forward what any yammering that I'm doing that you guys don't like. So you can just fast forward to the juicy bits. Okay, so now we've done the... okay, I don't know why Amazon keeps stopping. I don't even have it open. My phone's flawless, but for some reason the Amazon app likes to act like that. Okay, so now we've done everything, some of the higher folds. You know, like I mentioned in the earlier video, as you go up in these shades lighter and lighter, they go faster and faster because you're painting less and less of it. And they're actually more fun too because you're adding life to the folds. So, so now we've added some more of the lightning there. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the earlier video because I got cut off is not only with using one base color, which all I'm using is this Vallejo, what is it, green gray? Yeah, green gray 971. Okay, that's my base color in this one. Not only with using that particular color, I could have used a different color. I could do the same technique using white as the base color. But just with using this green gray as the base and adding different lighteners, again, remember this is blacks over here, adding black with the green grays here, the SS camo with this green gray is here, and this is the chocolate brown is over here with the green gray, and this is also the khaki gray. So just adding these 4 mixers, the darkeners with the core color, you get different shades. Not only that, because normally my normal technique involves picking one of these, lightening up to this core color, and then adding it to white, and then adding white to highlight. You can stop somewhere in the process before you get to this gray-green or whatever color you're using as the base and lighten from there. And what I mean by that is, let me show you an example using this SS Camo Brown. Okay, so say you've got your SS Camo Brown, and we're going to use the green gray here for an example. This is kind of cool because I've never really, I do this without really thinking about it. It's almost mindless. I'm a terrible multitasker, but this is something that I'm just kind of can do on my own. So let's say you have, this color is about the shade I just did, okay? This is the same base color. This is about where I'm at in the process, okay? So I'm going to mix another batch. I'm going to come over here. Let's put another one here, okay? Let's say I wanted to, I could do a couple different things. At this point, I can start adding white and lighten it up from here. In other words, I would end up taking this color and this be my base. You know, if you look at it like a number line, and 0 is the base color, you know, you've got like this first shade I put in that's really dark is maybe like a -2. And then I just painted a -1. You could make this like the 0. Okay? If you take this color that I just added, let's make it a little bit more pronounced. Okay? This is about like the next color I would end up putting on this figure here. I could also decide, you know what? I'm not going to add any more green gray. I'm going to go ahead and highlight from here and start adding white to it. It starts taking a slightly different path of how that color develops. Okay, and then if you add another white here, remember we're painting off white type colors anyways that are going to be fabrics that are going to be faded in the desert and that sort of a thing. Okay, so maybe I don't know if you can see here how it's transitioned from, let me make sure I get this is like taking selfies. I suck at it, where the camera is. So you've got the different shades that are right here, okay? But if I wanted to continue the path that I was on and continue adding the core color, original one, and then at a later point decide to take it into white, it's the same color, but it's slightly different. And just those little intricacies of having the different variations of color really makes your figures pop. And keeps you from, and this is just using one color. I mean, I've got, I don't know, 20 probably other similar colors to that one. You know, what you start adding these other mixers and it brings out like the color, the reds and stuff that are in the tones. So that's basically how I paint. And we're just going to go back to where we were here. You could even do something really crazy, like start adding some red to one of them. But I mean, you can really just experiment with it. I've never really experimented. I've just kind of done it. Not really put words in. It's kind of like, I guess, cooking without a recipe. I just kind of do it. And I've been really happy with the results I've gotten. So we're just going to take this lightened color on here. And again, this is very, very thin. Very, very thin. So you're not, if your paint is too thick, it won't flow right. And you also cover up detail. And you waste a lot of paint. So, you know, it's just very, it's almost somewhere between what you would think acrylics are and watercolors. Okay, so we highlighted him with that. Let's go a little bit more of the core color, okay? And this is definitely some more, well, this is pretty significant, the change between these two, but it'll be okay. We're just going to hit some of the lighter things here. The other thing is if you're painting it kind of this kind of consistency, kind of watery, then what happens is that even if you pick the next color and it's a significant color change, it doesn't seem so much because you're still having some of the color underneath shine through. And it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing like when if you're going to paint something yellow, you can't put it on I pretty much use a black base for everything, but if I'm going to paint yellow, I've got to paint like brown over it or mix a lot of brown to the yellow to get something that covers really well. because yellow by itself doesn't cover it all. It's almost transparent, translucent. It doesn't matter who makes the yellow. That seems to be the common thing. Something in that pigment just doesn't have a whole lot of covering properties. Orange is the same way as well. But once you start getting into the reds cover really well, greens, all that, blues. It's just yellows just don't cover well, or yellowish type things. They don't cover well at all, unless they're very whitish. They have a lot of white in them, like something like oh, this is a yellow, and this covers pretty well. So, and we'll see this one. We'll leave green ochre here because somebody else was asking me what colors I was using for the spears, and I do vary the spear colors, but I'm going to stick probably to the green ochre for the most part for these guys. Remember, the way I envision this army is these guys are fanatics, and they don't have a ton of money. They're not nobility or anything where they can just buy expensive things. They're just kind of getting by on the bare minimum. You know, they're just, hey, we want you to fight, but just show up with whatever it is that you have. So at least that's my vision of them based on what we know or don't know about them. So, okay, so I'm not going to go any more with this color. I'm gonna do maybe 1 or 2 lightning shades on here. So we're going to just add a tiny little bit of this, and we're going to put it on maybe places where it's shining, picking up a little bit more light, like the sleeve here, the top folds. That sort of thing. And if it looks a little too white, that works too, because that's kind of what these guys are wearing anyways. They're wearing some kind of linen for the most part. There are armies in the Middle East that were pretty colorful. It seems like based on a lot of the illustrations I've seen. And but I leave that to the armies that are more nobility based, or, you know, colors and tints cost money. So I just figured these guys probably just have the basics to get by. Okay, so that's his tunic, pretty much done. Okay, and where is the focal point on this thing? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to run into the next thing that everybody wants to see, and also something that I love doing is flush. Okay? So I've kind of a formula that I've always used for doing flesh, and that involves, I may have shown this on another video, it involves 4 colors. Of course, it always involves black and white. So you got, in order, black. We got black. We have this red leather. It doesn't necessarily have to be this color. I've just been very successful with this one. I've been happy with how it turned out. Red leather. Scunny. Always, here again with the scunny. I'm just going to put a K on there and just move forward. Sunny skin tone. Okay. And of course, white at the end. Okay. This is my basic Caucasian mix. I'm going to make a concoction with these 2 colors. Okay, I'm going to make it kind of brown, dark brown. It's going to look similar to this here. Hold on, let me find it. Let me zoom out some. It's going to be very similar to a color like this one here. And then we're going to have less than that. We're going to eventually get to a color like this one. Almost pure. Then we'll start adding this one. And then we'll eventually add a little bit of white for the highlights. So that's basically what I do for my Caucasian mix. What I've been doing for the Middle Eastern mix to make, and of course there's different variations in it. I think my Caucasians are almost all the same type of tone, but the Middle Eastern ones, I can mix them up, is I'm going to start adding this sunny skin tone before I get to this color pure. So in other words, it'll be added to a color that has still some black in it with the red leather, okay? And I'll show you how to do that, all right? So we already got black going on here. Let's put some red leather. Let's find us a spot. I made a bigger mess than normal because of showing you the little shades. That was kind of fun. I enjoyed doing that. Okay, so we're going to make the base color for the skin tone. And this is basically the same one that I would use if I was doing the regular Caucasian type of thing. So, and even my Asians, I've done the same thing. So my Nan Chao that I painted relatively recent, my Japanese, I would do the same thing. Okay, so we're going to... And I specifically picked this figure that's a little bit more, has a little bit more face. He doesn't have one of those COVID masks on or anything like that. So he's about as barren as they come. I think he's the only horseman, with the exception of the general. Let me see. Let me make sure I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth. Correct. With the exception of the general, he's the only other of the 15 horsemen that does not have a mask or a facial covering. So we definitely need to do it with him. Show you guys how this goes. Because the other guys do have flesh, but it's a smaller amount. Okay, so we're going to, let's see if we can zoom this back in. Come on. All right, now, here is that. And let's twist this a tiny bit. Okay, so we're going to take everything that is flesh related, which would be his face and his hands, and we're going to paint it overall with this dark shade. This darkest of the shades of the flesh. Okay, so you've got like a dark brown, almost like a chocolate brown, but it has some red-ishness to it. I said you can use a different color. When I did it, I just picked this up. I just started using this red leather, and I just happened upon results that I was happy with. Not sure how I came across doing this. It was many, many years ago, and geez, it's been almost 30 years ago. 30 years ago? No, not so. About 96, I started doing this, so this way. So, okay, so we're going to paint, and there's not a whole lot on there because he has a beard, okay, but he has, we're painting his cheekbones and his forehead and that sort of thing, and this is one of these sculptors that decided to put eyes on the dude, so I got to paint the eyeballs, unfortunately. That's relatively easy too. You got to give the impression of it, so, okay, so that's all we're going to do is he's painted in this darker shade. All right, now, so what's the next step? The next step is we're going to take this dark shade that we have and we're going to add a little bit more of this red leather. Okay. All right. And then we're going to switch to a better brush because this used to be a face brush, but I don't care what I do. Brushes do have a half-life and they start misbehaving. We want to make sure we use one that's got a little bit more precision on it, especially for the face. Because that's the part that's your attention is gonna be drawn to their face. So a good face can really make a figure, but a bad one will just ruin it. Okay, last sip of my Coke Zero, and now we have water. So usually coffee is my drink of choice, but it is after 10 p.m. here. I don't want to have a hard time going to sleep. I'd go to sleep just fine. I would just end up waking up every 2 hours or something. Okay, so we've got this shade that we made here, and we're going to paint the forehead here, the cheekbones. We're going to avoid the eye sockets. Okay. And we're going to paint the fingers. Okay, forearms here. All right, and that's it. He's got the one arm is totally buried inside the shield. So now we've got, and the lighting is really good for me, but it just doesn't come out great on the camera. Let's see if that's a little better. I think that's a little better. Okay. All right, so that's this shade here. So we're gonna go probably one more. You know what? We're gonna make this guy, let's go ahead and do his eyes, because if I screw up the eyes, which can happen, then I can just fix it with one of these darker shades. So we're gonna come over here to our white, okay? And all I plan on doing is dotting the eye sockets, which they stick out. They're actually, he's bug-eyed. These figures happen to have bug-eyed things. We're going to paint his eyes, and then we're going to go really lightly over the center or close to the center with some really tiny little bit of black. And that's all we're going to do. We're not going to do anything crazy. We're not going to paint his irises. But I wouldn't paint his eyes anyways. But the problem is the figure is molded with some eyes. So we're going to come over here. And we're just going to do a tiny little dab. And a tiny little dab over here. And make sure they're kind of even. You know, like I said before, you're not really painting the eyes. You're just kind of giving an illusion of what you're doing. Okay, so let's see. Can we get him in there? All we got is a couple little white dots, all right? Nothing too extravagant. All right. So, by the way, as a side note, if I was, say, painting maybe some Indian troops, of course, Indian troops are all over the place, and Indian troops from India, not Native Americans. I might go with something like this, and then lighten with white right now. I wouldn't even go in this sunny skin tone. You could go in all kinds of different directions with that, but we're going to stick to just a Middle East type thing. This is what we're painting right now. So we're going to grab our black. We do not need hardly any of it. We're going to sit over here, and we're going to leave till there's just a tiny little bit, and then we're going to go over what we think is the center of the eyeball and just paint just a tiny little bit. Okay? And I'll take a picture of this later and post it, what he looks like. But that is, I get the autofocus to work. I'm not really sure what it's autofocusing on. Okay, but he has little eyeballs, or the idea of eyeballs. Okay, and we're going to move on. We're good with that. That took zero time. A lot of it depends on the sculptor. They're the ones doing the hard work. We're just doing paint by numbers. Well, there's no numbers, but we're still doing paint by numbers. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. All right, so we've got him in this shade here, and this is why you want to use a wet palette, because if this was just a regular palette that wasn't wet, this would already be dry, and I couldn't add to it or do anything. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and drop some sunny skin tone on top of that. We're not going to go all the way to this color, which is what we would do if it was Caucasian. Okay, if I was painting a European or something like that, I would go up to this color before I do this step. So we're going to take a little bit of sunny skin tone. Don't have to do a whole lot. Okay, and blend it in with this color here. Okay, and then this is my next highlight color right here. Okay, and we're going to do some more finger definition. This is kind of the tone that I did for my for some of my Rajput troops. Some of the Rajput nobility, from the pictures I've seen, seem to have a lighter skin than some of the southern Indians. So I decided to kind of go with that. Could be totally wrong, but you know, sometimes you kind of have to go with the info you can find. We want to find sometimes info that just doesn't exist, or especially on like paint schemes and stuff. So, okay, so we have painted him in that color. So now we're going to add a little bit more sunny skin tone. Okay, don't want to go crazy though. Okay. And we're going to hit the bridge of the nose. That tends to be one of the brighter places. And I don't use any washes at all. It's just very hard to control washes. I mean, yes, there's quicker ways to do this, but they just don't go into the detail level that I would like them to have. So. Okay, and then I'm probably going to go one more. You know, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to take a little bit of white. Okay. Blend it in with this color. And we're going to do some more detailing on the hand. His forehead. We want to be kind of careful. We don't want to have to do the whole eye thing again. Not because it can't be done. It's just a pain in the ass. So, okay. There he is. There he is. Okay. So, next thing. Let's go ahead and do his turban. Okay. Now, look at the other colors I have. I don't want everybody to have a white turban. And, I mean, this one will have a white turban, but I'm going to have a little bit of a differentiation in the shades. Let's use one of our other shades that we made here, okay? As the core color. All right, as the base. All right, so let's lose this super fine precision one and go back to this one. And the brush size doesn't matter. I think these are all like 10-0 liners. But these are not precision brushes. They're not, it's exactly what they are. They're from Zhuangcheng, China. So, you know, it tells you all you need to know. They're not high quality brushes. And I believe there's some kind of golden Taklon type thing. I just haven't gotten around to buying any expensive brushes. I've been painting for over 35 years and never had expensive brushes. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen, folks, if it hasn't happened yet. So, yeah, so let's go ahead and do his turban. Okay. And we're going to use, let's go over here. We're going to use, let's go ahead and use this green gray. So we're going to use the same color as his tunic is, as the base color, this gray green, okay? But we're going to make it look totally different because we're not going to use this SS Camo Dark Brown as the darkener. We're going to use the chocolate brown as the darkener. Okay, so let's take some of the chocolate brown here from Vallejo. I'm going to put it down. I'm putting it down there because that's where our test was. Okay, and let's go grab some gray green. Okay, and then maybe go a little bit lighter. Okay, and we're going to paint the entire turban in this color. And if it's kind of watery, and if some of the black undercoat shows through, that's okay. Because it's only going to show through in places where It's the higher points, okay? So they're places I'm going to highlight anyways. So they're going to, those spaces that aren't as, they don't have as much paint on them, they will end up getting more paint specifically on those places. So I don't know if that made sense, but yeah, don't worry about it, okay? It doesn't have to cover absolutely completely. Black's a very hard color to cover, so that's not a big deal. Okay, we'll come over here to the front. And at what point I do the face, it just depends. The face really, more than anything else, really brings the figure to life. So, I could have done the turban face and the turban first, and then the face. I decided to go ahead and do the face. So, did I plan it out? Nah, I just kind of run with it. I'm not a big planner, so. Well, mainly because there's no bad repercussions. If you do things in a different order, it doesn't really matter. I mean, to me, I mean, I can pretty much reach anything that I can see. So, all right, so we've got everything painted in that color. We're going to add a little bit more of the gray-green base. Okay, and then we're going to hit some of these highlights, or most of them. As you go up in color, as you get lighter, more lightened, you'll end up painting less and less of the figure. So. All right. Okay. All right, so we're going to add one more of this gray-green. Just hit the top parts. Okay, now before I go directly into this color and start using that as the top color and highlight that with white, I'm going to start highlighting from here. So we're going to take this color, make sure there's enough of it, because we're going to have to, it needs to last there a little bit. We're going to add some white to it. I don't know why my white's drying faster than everything else. Okay. And we're going to add some highlighting there. Okay. Okay, and we're going to add a little bit more white. Bring it up even more. I've never really considered doing one of those dip methods or anything like that, but the fact that the process I'm doing right now is the one I'm enjoying the most, you know, adding the folds, giving life to the folds and all that, I wouldn't get to do that with some kind of a dip method. I would get to do more of the paint the whole figure in one shade process, which is the part of it that I just like. I just think that you can't put your own spin on it like that. I mean, certainly you could pick the colors, but it's kind of limiting. So, yeah, I won't be dipping any figures. But other people have done them, and it turns out pretty well for them. But I'm too far along on this crazy train to go back now, so. Okay, so we're about done with this guy. Okay, and here we have him. Again, he's made with the same base color as this tunic is here. Okay, so he's done with that. All right, next thing, let's go ahead and do his spear, his lance. Okay. All right, we don't need this kind of precision. Whoa, hello. I'm not used to having this thing on the right-hand side of me. I'm extremely right-handed, so the camera's kind of in my way, so to speak, but it's easier on this side dealing with it than on the other one. Oh, I guess this is the one I was using. Oh, okay, well, that'll work. All right, let's go to good old green ochre. Okay. This is almost like a middle stone type color. Color some tanks and the Western Desert in World War II would be painted, something like that. Okay, we'll put some of that color down. All right, and we're going to use chocolate brown with this one. So we already got chocolate brown over here, so we're good with that. We're going to take a mix. We're not going to paint the whole thing chocolate brown. We're going to paint it with a mix with this ochre. Nope, a little bit more ochre. More ochre. Need more ochre. Okay. Water sip. All right, now this color we have here, we're going to paint the entire lance in this color. So here we go. Again, the most boring part. I don't care for this. And what we're going to do is this does not have a tip or anything. This is just a needle or a pen that's been filed down so that I do not draw blood. So we're going to come short of the end, because we're going to have a thin line there and a black, and then we will have we'll paint the tip some metallic color, okay, to give the illusion of that. Okay, so just painting everything in this color right here, except for a little tip. I mean, I guess you could paint it all. You just end up having to repaint it. It's just, why waste your time? I value my time, so I don't do it. Yeah. Okay, so that's done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add more of this green ochre on top of it. Again, we're going to get closer to that green ochre color. Okay, and then we're going to paint the most prominent portions of it in that color. Okay. Now, just like the other thing, I could stop right here and start adding a lightener to it, which reminds me, we need a little bit more white. Okay. And from this point, or work in more green ochre. I think we're going to add a little bit more color to it. And then maybe a shade after this, we'll add some white to it. So we're going to do, again, the same thing. Okay, and then once we're done with that, we can come in and add a little bit of this. You want to go sparingly with this because it will make a big difference. It goes a long, long way. And we're going to just hit some of these highlights here. So this looks lance-like. Okay, so now we've got a lance here with some, a little bit more here. A lance here with some depth of color on it. Okay, and it's getting pretty late, and we're almost an hour into it, so I think I'm going to call this one a wrap. So hopefully you guys learned something, or maybe you saw something here that you could put to use. But yeah, that's where this guy is. See if we can put a little base for him so you guys can see how far along we are. Well, that didn't work. That was way too tall. Okay, how about we raise it? Okay, can we focus on him? Nope. The focal point on this thing is. Okay, but this is, come on, focus, you numbskull. Okay, that's where we are on this guy so far. Okay, so we'll pick up, we'll hopefully get this guy finished up tomorrow. I'm not sure if I want to film it, but I did want you guys to see how I did some of those color blendings and the faces and so forth, because several people have asked me about it. So, okay, so there you have it. You guys have a good night, and we'll catch you guys next time on the next video. Okay, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and so that'll allow us here shortly to do this live feed directly on YouTube. So you guys have a good night. All right, folks. Bye.